Hey guys, it's Miss Minion, and we're on Truman Years video 2. Same essential questions, same learning targets, so just kind of continue your notes. Alright, so this is a slide we did last time, and I didn't really get to talk about this, but like a buildup of nuclear weapons can mean that either side could set off a nuclear weapon at any time, and it would lead to what we call mutual assured destruction, which we'll get into a little bit more with Eisenhower. Okay, so Cold War in Asia. Asian countries were resisting Western influence. Sorry about the misspelling. After World War II. However, Japan was taken over by the United States and the Allied powers after World War II, and they tried Hideki Tojo for war crimes, and he was executed. They set up a parliamentary democracy, which means that they have a parliament that is elected. And Japan also depended on America for military reasons. We had a lot of bases there. And then also the Philippines, we gave them their independence in 1946, but we still kept our naval bases there. So this is going to mean that America is going to be highly prevalent, in the Pacific Ocean. All right, Korean War, 1950 to 1953. All right, so this is Korea. We have North Korea and we have South Korea, and they're divided on what we call the 38th parallel. All right, so North Korea, oh wait, this is a really cool picture because it shows you that this is the border. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we have some awesome pictures here. Okay, so Korea is divided on the 38th parallel, like I said. The Soviets are going to occupy the north, and the U.S. occupies the south. So this is really communist versus capitalist environment here. In 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea. So remember, North Korea is supported by the Soviet Union. South Korea is supported by the United States. So what we call this like a proxy war, so that the countries aren't actually fighting each other. They're fighting in a different country for a different reason, but technically they're fighting each other. So Truman applied that containment policy that we've talked about containing communism, and sent UN forces to help the South Korea. So let's just say UN. General Douglas MacArthur led the effort, who was also very big in the Pacific War in World War II. In a counterattack, when MacArthur went with UN forces, he turned the tide of the war by pushing North Korea all the way back up to the Chinese border. But China was afraid that the UN would invade, so they helped North Korea and pushes UN forces back. So it's kind of a silly war because it ends up in a stalemate. So they go up, 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 and then back, 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 and then we're back at the same place. So UN recaptured Seoul, and they had the 38th parallel again. In the meantime, MacArthur was pushing Washington to remove restrictions so that this can be an all-out war, but Truman declined it because he did not want to widen the war. And he ended up firing MacArthur for subordination on April 11th. So what happens with the Korean War? They sign an armistice. A ceasefire was signed, and the borders went back to the 38th parallel. So really nothing happens at all. No territory is lost and none is gained. Political consequences. Containment does work because it kept the communists back, but it ends in a stalemate, and this is going to cause a lot of tensions in Southeast Asia. Okay, here's the force comparison. North Korea's people versus U.S. Armed Forces. 14 divisions in the North Korean People's Army, 10 divisions here, but we also had 2 Marine divisions. Okay, they have 150 tanks and 100 modern aircraft, where we had 48 air groups. Okay, so you can see the differences in the troops there. These are some quotes. This one here is from Truman, and it says, "I deeply regret that it becomes my duty as President and Commander-in-Chief of the United States Military Forces to replace you as Supreme Commander, Allied Powers, Commander-in-Chief, United Nations Command, Commander-in-Chief Far East, and Commanding General United States Army Far East. You will return over your commands effective at once." P.S. Douglas MacArthur had a whole lot of titles. So this was his response. He was seen as a hero. But it says, this is Douglas MacArthur. "But once it is forced upon us, there is no other alternative than to apply every available means to bring it to a swift end." So really he wanted Truman to do more, and Truman did not want to do that. All right. So basically that goes with the stalemate. So Korea today remains communist and a nuclear threat. Its nickname, the Hermit Kingdom, reflects that it is a very closed nature society. South Korea is a fully functioning modern democracy with an economy over 14 times greater than North Korea's. And this right here is the official diplomatic headquarters. North Korean guards that are in brown face their South Korean counterparts in blue. Since it's an armistice, there's really no peace treaty. All right, so some of this is just a repeat, so you don't have to write any of that down. But you probably do want to write 34,000 U.S. soldiers were killed. All right, and this is where they signed that armistice. Couldn't even sit at the same table, guys. Okay? All right, so we have a split here in the world. All purple is democracy, all green is communism. Okay? So that leads us to this fear that communists would take over the United States and eventually the world. And we've actually already talked about a Red Scare. We talked about it in the 1920s when they were rounding people up. So what are some causes? The Alger Hiss trial of 1948. He was a government official and he helped establish the UN. It came out that he was a spy, and this really scared people and it kind of sent them on a witch hunt. So you have these people called the Rosenbergs. During the time when Soviet Union is creating an atomic weapon, America thought the Soviets couldn't have produced the atomic bomb without help. So they figured that somebody was spying, and they figured those people were Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, who were husband and wife. They were accused of passing the info to the Soviets, and they didn't really have any evidence, but they were still convicted and executed. Okay, and actually you can kind of compare that to when we talked about Seiko and Vanzetti in the 1920s. The hydrogen bomb. This is the Soviets are going to test a bigger bomb. It's called the H bomb, and now Americans were afraid of nuclear war. What kind of effects does that mean? That means that the schools set assigned areas as bomb shelters. They're called duck and cover drills. So bomb drills where kids hid under their desk covering their head with their hands, which is obviously is going to save them from a nuclear attack. And then fallout shelters, which were built in backyards or under homes, stocked with canned foods, water, batteries, etc. A good movie to see is Blast from the Past. That's kind of a cool movie that shows that. So yeah. Some other effects, there's a loyalty review program. Basically, President Truman said all federal employees could be screened for loyalty, which is unheard of. And then the FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover demanded public hearings to find communist spies. So like I said, this is really like a witch hunt for communism. And if someone said you were a communist, they were going to check you out and make sure you were loyal, even if there was no evidence. One specific person, Joseph R. McCarthy, was a senator, and he began to hunt for suspected communists in the United States. He ended up coming up with a list where he said he had a list of people in the government who were communists, and it gained him a lot of power, and he didn't actually have any evidence. So we call this is what McCarthyism. It's a search for communism, for communists in the U.S., damaged reputations with charges. Basically, people really thought that he knew what he was talking about until he called out the army, and then people started discrediting him. Here's one program, the House Un-American Activities Committee that was created. It's called HUAC, and it was created by Congress to identify current or former members of the Communist Party. They investigated movie actors, directors, and writers, and they even created a blacklist where they said these people are commies. And they didn't really even have any evidence, and most of those people lost their jobs. All right, what to remember from all this? These are your 3 essential questions for the Truman years. How does fear threaten freedom? What consequences advancements were made during post-war America during Truman? And how do human rights advance during the 1950s? I do want to say up here, I put how does fear threaten freedom, Red Scare. Make sure you write McCarthyism in there. And I would this is going to help you kind of sort your ideas, so I would definitely write this down. On this one, consequences and advancements, the advancements are in blue and the consequences are in orange. All right, see y'all later.